You probably know that time is the most important thing. It's the only thing in the world that has a fixed supply and an unlimited demand. And so in this video, I will be sharing the 7 pieces of advice I am still using myself after years of trying to become a more efficient artist. After having read almost all of the famous time management books and having watched all the so-called productivity YouTube geniuses. So let's dive in. The first tip is to learn how to listen faster. We all know that people who can read fast have a time benefit over people who can read slow. Now, what most people don't know is that the same goes for listening. If you can listen faster, you have a time benefit over people who are slow listeners. Let's take YouTube as an example. YouTube allows you to increase the speed up to 2 times on the educational videos that you are watching. And so you could learn how to listen twice as fast so you can do your YouTube research 2 times faster. And then if you want to go to the next level, because 2 times faster is not fast enough for you, you can use a Chrome extension called YouTube Speed Controller, which I use to increase the speed to as much as I want. And after just a couple of years, I'm now able to listen and watch at speeds of up to 4.5 times faster than normal speed. In other words, if a video is 15 minutes long, I can watch it in a little over 3 minutes, saving me 11 minutes that I can then use to do more research. And it's not just for YouTube videos. I do the same for everything in audio or video format. Even the movies I watch for relaxation purposes or watch on higher speeds. The next tip is probably one of the most life-changing rules I've ever came across when it comes to time management. It's the Parkinson's law on time management and states that the work you have to do always expands to fill the total amount of time allowed for its completion. Meaning that if you give yourself 3 days to make a YouTube video, it will usually take 3 days to finish. But if you would have given yourself just 1 day for that same video, you would have been able to somehow do it in 1 day. The Parkinson's law is a paradox and very ironic. The more time you have for a task, the more time it will take. And if you think about it, when it comes to time, everything is a paradox. The more time you have, the more you start complaining about not having enough time, for example. Our grandparents had to work 12-hour days for 7 days a week, didn't have frozen meals to speed up the cooking process, didn't have cell phones to speed up communication, didn't have washing machines and showers for the clothes, dishes and bodies, and didn't have cars to drive them around to buy groceries. Our ancestors are the ones who actually didn't have time, but more importantly, they were also the ones who were not complaining about not having enough time all the time. It's our generation that is complaining about not having enough time, even though it's our generation that has more time than any generation that has come before it. This is another paradox. And one more paradox to close it. The more time you have, the more you want to fill up that time, leaving you with even more feelings of not having enough time. We even invented a word for it. It's called FOMO. The third time management advice doesn't come from me, but comes from one of the most famous artists of all time. None other than the time genius who painted the persistence of memory, Salvador Dali himself. Dali said, if you truly want to manage your time, stop watching YouTube except for Dries, his videos, which you should not just be watching, but also liking. Seriously. Like his videos right now. Salvador Dali. And so if Dali says that, who am I to really argue with that? Anyway, the actual third tip is to understand that you are an inefficient and time-wasting human being. And unless you prevent yourself from being inefficient, you will always be inefficient and wasting time no matter how many time management tips you follow. In other words, there is no artist that is disciplined enough to not scroll on Instagram or YouTube, or check their social media stats all the time, or checking your TubeBuddy stats or your website stats to see how many visitors you had, or checking your mailbox or anything that seems like work but isn't. If you don't manage those distractions, they will find a way to infiltrate in your life and consume your time without you realizing it. And so in order to prevent this, I am using an app called Focus Me that allows me to block everything that I want to block on my computer for particular amounts of time, so that I deprive myself of the possibility to distract myself altogether. It's not the best app. I most certainly have had some problems with it, but it gets the job done. And it has a forced mode that forces restrictions in a way that you cannot undo them by simply uninstalling the app, for example. The next step is to stop trying to solve problems in your business. If you look at the best artists throughout history or the best businesses throughout history, they all got there because of the opportunities they grabbed and not because of the problems they solved. The sad reality is that problem solving, even though it is necessary, does not produce any results. It only prevents damage. In other words, problem solving more often than not is just an excuse to not do the important things, a form of procrastination. I know a lot of people that are constantly solving all the problems, but at the end of the year, don't get anything done. They are fixing the toilet leak, fixing the broken friendship, then fixing the problems of those broken friendships, fixing a meal for the evening, buying cigarettes because they don't have any cigarettes anymore, cleaning the house more than necessary, taking too many showers, buying the shoes because they don't think they have the right shoes for the occasion. I know a lot of people that are solving problems, and because of that, don't get anything done. Solving problems is just not the right strategy and very time consuming. And so a huge part of becoming a great artist is actually learning how to not care about particular problems and allow the damage that they will inflict on you or your business and be okay with that. It's like Peter Drucker said beautifully in The Effective Executive. It's all about doing the first things first and the second things not at all. Let me give you an example. I have an Instagram account with over 5,000 followers, generating 600 likes a post and thousands of views a video. And there are a lot of problems connected to that, such as posting content, for example. And I've decided to let those problems be problems. I've decided to not post on Instagram anymore. I think at this moment I post one post every 2 months or something, and I do also try to reply to all the DMs that I'm getting. And so the problem my followers on Instagram are not hearing from me anymore remains to be a problem that I will happily not solve at all. The fifth tip is to ask the right questions. Most artists ask themselves the following question: what do I want to do? And then they will establish the long-term goal or short-term goal that is connected with that. And then they will figure out a way to get there. And then they will start working hard and effectively towards that goal. But if you do that, you will always fail no matter how productive you are, no matter how talented you are, no matter how fast you are. The question you should ask yourself instead of what do I want to do is what needs to be done, and then do the things that need to be done. For way too long, I was just making art. I was just inspiring myself in my studio with great artworks and thought that if I would make great artworks, it would somehow work out in the end. Now, looking back at that, it was some sort of artistic self-masturbation. Back then, I didn't seem to realize that at the end of the year, I was not closer to becoming an artist than in the beginning of the year. And when I started asking myself the question, what needs to be done, suddenly everything changed. I suddenly found myself doing administrative tasks around taxes that I didn't like to do. I started to market myself properly instead of waiting for stuff to happen. And I started to, at least, think about going on a date instead of neglecting that for the bigger part of the decades. The sixth tip is all about focus, because the majority of time that we lose is because of our lack of focus. We've talked about focus me and app that prevents you from falling into distractions, but even with that, there is still a distraction of your own fantasy and imagination, which tends to be the biggest time waster of them all, especially if you're an artist. And at the moment of making this video, there is not yet a tech company that developed an app to block out your imagination from interrupting your workflow state. Hashtag why is this not a Black Mirror episode? Joking aside, there is something that we can do about this, and that is to train our focus. And I'm not talking about the scammy focus training apps that don't actually work. I'm talking about the only science-based proven method that has already been going on for thousands of years. And that is meditation. And for those of you who never tried meditation and think it's some kind of hippie thing, it's actually predominantly training your focus, especially in the beginning of your practice. In the first year of your meditation practice, 98% of meditation is literally training your focus through your breath. The seventh tip is to replace your to-do list with a sketchbook or notebook or journal or something. To-do lists don't work, and if you look at the Elon Musks and Da Vinci's of the world, none of them use them. They all have schedules that are planned in years ahead, but they do have notebooks they carry with them. You want a notebook because it creates freedom, time, and space in your head. Our brains are for having good ideas and not for holding them. And so it's in your best interest to have a way to store those ideas outside of your head. Now, if using a sketchbook or journal or anything like that sounds like a great idea to save time, something you have always wanted to do, but never were able to make the jump towards it, then I would recommend to watch my video, How a Sketchbook Can Change Your Life. It's linked up right now and will give you some more benefits and arguments on why you should start a notebook or sketchbook. Hope to see you there. Ciao, ciao.